Nagash, the Doom Kings. The Doom Kings awaken. As Nagash's powerful sorceries coursed across Nehekara, countless corpses stirred and rose, animated solely by the dark will of the necromancer. With his destruction, their source of animus vanished, and they fell like marionettes whose strings had been mysteriously cut. Nagash's foul magic also penetrated the tombs of the kings and reverberated throughout the carnal pits of the dead cities. However, protected and shielded by a degree by the wards and incantations placed upon their pyramids and necropolises, Nagash's spell affected the long-dead kings and their buried legions differently. After centuries of entombment, the stiffened corpses of monarchs and heroes awoke. The mummified kings rose from their resting places. Legions of skeleton warriors burst forth from their sand-filled tomb pits, ready to do their liege's bidding. Due to the incantations of preservation performed on the embalmed bodies, the Doom Kings awoke from their long journey through the realm of souls with their memories and faculties intact. They emerged from their tombs in horror, where the ancient kings had been promised eternal life in a paradise where they would rule supreme. They instead awoke to find themselves clad in desiccated flesh and rotted vestments, with their cities shattered, their lands desolate, and their kingdoms all but destroyed, little more than ruins poking out from beneath the sand dunes. The War of the Kings. There had been countless kings during the long history of Nehekara. The fires of ambition and pride had driven them in life, still resided in their ancient bodies, and they instantly set out to reclaim their empires as best they could. Kings who were great and powerful in life, who had reigned unchallenged for centuries, now awoke from death in a land where they were but one amongst hundreds. All believed the right to rule the land was solely theirs, and none would relinquish their perceived power. Dynasties that were built upon the shoulders of more powerful monarchs were forced to confront their founders, and there were long battles in the necropolises as king fought king. Undying legions arose at their command, and many thousands of skeleton warriors were destroyed as the undead Doom Kings struggled for supremacy. Of all the tombs and pyramids, only one remained silent and untouched by the fighting: the Great Pyramid of Settra, the Imperishable. The wards heaped on the white burial monument had protected the mummified corpse of Settra from Nagash's tainted sorcery, and its occupants still slumbered in the sleep of death, oblivious to the tumult of battle taking place outside the pyramid walls. As the battles raged, the Lich Priests looked on. Their bodies, already extended far beyond their natural span, were unaffected by Nagash's spell. They had survived the rise and fall of Nagash, whose sorcerer's power they could not match, but it looked like the warring Doom Kings were going to destroy what remained of Nehekara. The head of the mortuary cult, Grand Hierophant Kateb, oldest and wisest of the Lich Priests, took it upon himself to restore order. As king smote king, Kateb broke the seals to Settra's pyramid and began to recite the incantation of awakening. Settra awakens. In Gemri, the battles between rival kings lasted for days before the tomb of Settra opened, and the mightiest of all the kings of Nehekara strode out into the blazing sunlight at the head of thousands of his warriors. In undeath, Settra hungered for the dominion of his fellow Doom Kings, for the domination of his fellow Doom Kings, and he would suffer no rival to his rule. Settra waded into the carnage. His herald, Nekaf, stood as ever by his side. Together they led Settra's elite tomb guard and quickly carved a path through the rival skeleton legions. Settra struck down dozens of lesser Tomb Kings who stood against him, powdering their bones to dust and destroying them utterly. Not even Arcan the Black, with his command of dark sorcery, could prevail against Settra's strength of arms, and he was forced to flee Gemri. Before long, all the Tomb Kings bowed their heads to Settra the Imperishable, the undisputed ruler of all Nehekara. The reign of millions of years. Settra returned to his throne room and commanded the Lich Priests to explain to him why the awakening had gone awry, and so long before the right and proper time. Settra's fury was great. His cities were in ruins, his treasures had been plundered, and much of his kingdom had been lost to foreign invaders. The golden paradise he was promised did not exist, and, worst of all, it appeared as if the ancient gods had abandoned Nehekara. Grand Hierophant Kateb cowered before the outraged king and told the history of Nehekara since his passing over 2,000 years before. As best he could, Kateb told Settra of the spell that the foul Nagash had cast, cursing Nehekara for all time. Settra listened with a barely controlled rage simmering within him. Once he had learned all that he could from Kateb, he commanded that the Tomb Kings return to their eternal rest. The Lich Priests were given the duty of watching over the tombs and of awakening his vassal kings as needed. Settra vowed that he would stay vigilant, taking stock of the world and waging war as was his wont. Never again would he slumber, lest his kingdom slide into ruin. Settra set about restoring his former empire without delay. In particular, he watched for the return of the hated Nagash, who had cursed his realm, for he knew that the necromancer might yet reappear in the world, and that Nagash's sorcery would still threaten his immortality. So it was that Nehekara became the land of the dead, and Settra the Imperishable renewed his leadership, which would become known as the Reign of Millions of Years. The Land of the Dead. Whilst the land of Nehekara was once fertile, populous, and prosperous, it is now a desolate kingdom. In addition to the centuries of war and neglect, the lands were forever tainted by the enchantments of Nagash's great ritual. The land of the dead is now a ghost-haunted realm where countless unquiet spirits and elementals flit around great mortuary temples and dark tombs. Their cries can be heard screaming in the wind as they cross the vast tracts of Nehekara's baking deserts, preying on those foolish enough to enter the cursed land in search of treasure. Nehekara is a hostile realm where the searing heat of the desert sun is the least of a wandering traveler's worries. The waters of the great Mortis River are poisonous and blood-colored, providing no relief to the thirsty. There are regions of quicksand that can swallow regiments whole, and choking sandstorms that strip the flesh from bones in mere seconds. Whirlwinds of dust, skulls, and ravenous desert insects scour the land, and rivers of flesh-eating beetles crawl across the desert, consuming everything in their path. There are vast plains of bones and skulls that come to life without warning, skeletal fingers reaching up to drag anything alive on the surface into a sandy grave below. A few oases still exist, scattered throughout the arid desert, but they are all tainted. Instead of fresh water, they are filled with bubbling pools of blood. Most are the abodes of foul monsters, and those that are not lined with parched, malevolent trees that strangle their victims and suck every drop of moisture from their bodies. Nehekara is a wilderness of ever-shifting sands, a land of constantly changing topography. There are waterfalls of sand that defy the passage of time and flow backwards. There exist dunes and basins large enough to accommodate entire armies, and many of the Doom King's legions lie beneath the surface in such places, awaiting the magical incantations of Lich Priests to awaken them from their deathly slumber. A sandstorm might unearth a monolithic statue, or even an entire buried city, lost and forgotten under the dunes, only to be engulfed and concealed again a few days later. Such hidden places are said to include the mysterious City of Bronze, a complex rumored to be covered in glyphs carved by beings older than Nehekara itself. In addition to open deserts, where sand stretches as far as the eye can see, there are vast necropolises and numerous places where one can hardly move for all the statues and sculptures, each covered with grisly images of death. These monuments are vaster and grander than anything the old world can boast, and foremost among them are towering figures resembling the great kings and angry gods of Nehekara, fearsome statues that come to life and smite trespassers with impunity. When the Tomb Kings awoke, they ordered their undead millions the cities of old and fill them with markets, wares, boats, and other things that they remembered from life. As few trees grow in the land of the dead, many of these things are fashioned from stone, gold, or fused bones. Skeletal men walk the lands, fulfilling seemingly pointless jobs, such as fetching stagnant water, harvesting crops long since withered, or else rowing barges across the great Mortis River. Armies of skeletons are forever patrolling the borders of their realms as they did in life, relentlessly striding across the arid landscape in search of enemies and intruders. Numerous undead creatures wander the deep desert, from swarms of small but deadly desert scorpions to giant centipedes, each the size of a sphinx. Great flocks of carrion circle high above, and packs of ravenous sand sharks swim beneath the surface of the dunes. In the centuries since Nagash's great ritual, many foul monsters have been drawn to the magically tainted realm. There are now manticores, cockatrices, and even dragons inhabiting the Nehekaran desert. Nomadic bandits make a living by plundering the tombs of ancient kings, and marauding orc tribes continuously rampage across the land of the dead in search of battle and plunder. Nehekara may be a barren realm, but it is far from empty or uninhabited. Legions of legend. Throughout the dynasties of Nehekara, there have been many courageous legions whose names and deeds are inscribed on the walls of the necropolises beside those of their ancient kings. Many were easily recognized for their distinct appearance. The noble-born warriors of Settra's crocodile squadron were wealthy fighters who decorated their chariots with the hides and teeth of the exotic jungle creatures they had slain. The Kepra guard carried ebony shields studded with bronze scarabs. The golden host of Manrak, whose swords were made from precious metals, have, in death, become their namesake by walking through a pool of molten gold to gild their bones. There are countless others, from the Sphinx legions of Numos to the Xandri Black Shields. However, the most feared of all were the Hawk legions of Settra. In unlife, these loyal soldiers remain deadly and implacable foes. Time and again they have set forth from Gemri to conquer, and they have returned victorious, their turquoise shields splattered red with the blood of their enemies. And that is actually it for the history of the Doom Kings. So I think rather than starting the battle history, which is titled, if I can find it, "The Legions Go to War." The battles of the Doom Kings are many, and were 1,000 scribes to toil. For 1,000 years they could not recount them all. Here are just a couple of these epic tales. So I think we're actually gonna call it here. I know it's a shorter video. I have to point this out first though. In the timeline, the year 666 involves demons invading Nehekara. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I would love it if you could leave a comment, leave a like, share it with somebody, or if you're not subscribed, subscribe. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Bye-bye.